Wake up New Zealand. Hello everyone. Beautiful day outside here in Auckland. Today I want to talk about Jacinda Ardern and her trip to France regarding hate speech, freedom of speech. Jacinda Ardern's maiden speech in the UN Assembly actually said that all people are equal, that everyone is entitled to have their dignity and human rights respected. Freedom of speech in New Zealand, we have the right to the freedom of speech, however not explicitly protected by common law in New Zealand. It's encompassed in a wide range of doctrines aimed at protecting free speech. So freedom of speech, everyone has a right to freedom of expression, including the right to seek, receive and impart information and opinions of any kind and any form. So in August 2018, Ardern stated in News Channel 1, New Zealand, we are a nation that allows free speech. New Zealanders should be allowed to hear Chelsea Manning, says Jacinda Ardern. April the 3rd, 2019, one British newspaper headlined its account of her speech with the words, real. It was the first country in which all New Zealanders had the right to vote. So all, meaning women, won the right to vote. One of the earliest to adopt a comprehensive cradle-to-the-grave welfare state. Well, we certainly have that, and we're going to have many more on that are dependent on the welfare state as things are going. So, if freedom of speech is taken away, then dumb and silent we may be led, like sheep to the slaughter. We may be stopped from opposing anything that relates to socialist, governmental reforms in any way. In France 2016, remember Ardern is visiting France regarding freedom of speech? France 2016, France limited freedom of speech, which prohibits Holocaust denial, shuts down mosques if deems they are too radical. So they don't recognise the Holocaust. Freedom of religion in France is guaranteed. It's a constitutional right. So when you're talking about religion, let's talk ideology. So population of Muslims in France, there are about 9 million, about an eighth of the population practicing Muslims in metropolitan France. In practice, however, the government's restrictions, there is religious restrictions of freedom expression on religion in public squares. So again, they don't allow any free expression about the Holocaust. It's denied. France. Freedom of expression is enshrined in the Declaration of Rights of Man and the Citizen. As for freedom of, it does not need to be public if to be punished. So they do punish freedom of speech, depending on what is said, of course. It could be religious, could be about Jews, it could be about anything. The government makes up its own mind, as it will in New Zealand. France. So, Macron's measure would be to grant judges emergency powers to remove or block certain content deemed to be fake during sensitive election periods. As I say, to oppose government may affect freedom of speech. It may make it hate speech if you dislike what the government propose. So freedom of expression in France, it's actually enshrined in the Declarations of Rights of the Man and the Citizen. As for the freedom, it doesn't need to be public or punished. So Macron is doing his utmost to stop press freedom. Islam is the second most widely professed religion or ideology in France behind Catholic and Christianity. They have about 2,500 mosques in France, with a further 250 or so planned. Remember, many mosques are actually funded by Saudi Arabia. Emmanuel Macron's plan to create an Islam of France is well known. Sharia laws, UK has already got some Sharia courts, so it's all about the numbers game. The more Muslims you have here, the more likely there are to be Sharia courts. So what is Sharia law? In the religion of Islam, it refers to punishments that under Islamic law are mandated and fixed by God. So they range from public lashings to public stoning to death, amputation of hands and crucifixion. They are an important part of ideology, belief system of the Muslim ideology. So if you had a circle, you drew a circle and you put a line right down the middle of it on one side, and you call that the mosque. On one side you call that prayers, beautiful things, angels, everything beautiful that New Zealanders call really nice, lovely people, peaceful people. That's what New Zealanders see. But on the other side of that, the other half, you had the politics, the Sharia law, the Quran teaching. So there's actually two parts to one mosque. So at the moment, what we are seeing are peaceful, loving people. We are not actually seeing the other half. We deny ourselves seeing the other half. The majority of us do. But if we were going across to Europe and other countries, you would certainly see the other half, because they have got Sharia courts now in the UK. And we're a small population in New Zealand. It would be very easy to get those numbers up here. So we have Jacinda Ardern going over to France and to get some help on this making new laws for freedom of speech, hate speech, whatever you want to call it. But France is a mess, a total mess. It's a very sick country. If you go to Paris, if I went to Paris 20 years ago, today I would not recognise it. It's absolutely rubbish. It's poor. There's gangs. It's a horrible place to be. It's overrun by migrants and refugees. There is acid attacks. There are gang attacks. Yeah. So obviously Macron's laws has done nothing. It's only made things worse, because when you stop freedom of speech, people go underground, and that's not healthy. Debate is healthy. Healthy debate. And that's what we need in this country, is healthy debate. And we should accept nothing else. We need to stand up to this and not just accept it. And as for CO2 and climate change, let me just hit on that. Here we go. Ardern, travelling across the world, a bit more CO2, Ardern. How many times is that this year, or in the last 18 months? And you talk about CO2 and global warming? Come on. Okay for you. So, yeah, it's just a big fallacy. And we're just like sheep of people being led up the garden path by Ardern and her UN directive. Thank you, people.